Whatever you can imagine, I can create.
Let's party.
Nice choice.
I just want to rap.
Blue Beetle movie was a groovy, quirky telling of a young superhero named Jaime and his family. Now I gotta say, I knew I was gonna like this movie when I saw the trailer, but they did a good job hiding certain things about it. I absolutely liked the trailer. I think that whoever edited the trailer did a great job with the song choice, with the beats, synchronization of the movements to the beats. That was well done. And when I saw those moves recreated in the movies, we actually got to see those, like the Final Fantasy sword scene. That was freaking amazing. I was hyped up for that scene just as much as I was when I saw it in the trailer. The colors popped, which is, I don't know why it's such a hard thing nowadays with DC and Marvel movies, especially Marvel movies, for the movies to actually have color in them. But Blue Beetle does have that. It has decent action, and the main character is very likable. He and his love interest are so pretty, and the chemistry is okay. There are a lot of comedic moments that did have me laughing. I don't think all the jokes hit, but it definitely is a kind of movie that makes you root for the main character. That being said, I can understand why in some people's eyes it would come off as very generic and forgettable. I thoroughly liked it, but it didn't give me the same impact or the magnitude of memorability as Deadpool did when I first saw it. Now, granted, I didn't know anything about Blue Beetle before seeing the trailer. I didn't even know that was a superhero. I had no idea. The only thing I heard of was the Tick, and I saw the Tick a few years ago, the new version of it, I guess. I didn't know about that character either, but he looks eerily like this one, and so I thought that's what this character was with a different name, but no, apparently this is a different character. So this is my first exposure to the character, and when I saw Deadpool for the first time, I was obsessed. I was obsessed. Same thing with Guardians of the Galaxy, obsessed. Now those are burned into my mind. However, after watching the Blue Beetle movie, despite me liking it, I didn't have the same feeling with him. I don't know what it is, but it just didn't spank my brain the way that the others did, those introductions. Now, I'm not going to recap the movie because you can already find lots of videos out there that recap the movie. All you have to know is typical superhero movie. Guy ends up being chosen by this scarab thing, and it's like an alien tech thing that is almost like what Venom and Tom Hardy's character have, where there's a symbiotic relationship, except that it's like cyborgy now. He doesn't want these powers, but then he embraces them afterwards. His family, though, got to see him get the powers, and that was a very hilarious scene watching that unfold in their kitchen. It was freaking great. They do have emotional beats in this movie, too, and they really do try to manipulate the hell out of your freaking emotions. The father is very likable, very, very likable. So likable to the fact where you even go in the movie wondering, something bad's gonna happen to that guy. Remember Uncle Ben? How nice he is and how perfect? You usually know something is going to happen to someone, or something's gonna bite the dust when someone is really nice. And even though, as a kid, you would be like really disrespectful to your parents or do something mean, and the parents are super nice, it usually means something bad's gonna happen. And that's exactly what happened. So then there's like a catalyst for that, but I don't know. I feel like there are certain things this movie did very well, but there's certain places where they dropped the ball. And I'm gonna list off those things. Example, Exhibit A, Nintendo 64 graphics.
Jesus!
Well, that was the only part of the movie that was like that I can think of that was just really obviously bad. But anyway, moving on. Now, it may offend some people, but I'm trying to be as honest as possible. This is where I think the movie would have lost people, and why people would probably say, yeah, maybe I won't refer this to people, because a lot of the movies that we watch, trust me, us wanting to see other people to see the movie, that usually means the movie has a really big impact on us. And the fact that Blue Beetle didn't have as much as an impact, or people are hearing what other people are saying about it, says a lot. Now, I personally would want people to go and see the movie, but I would be like, yeah, you should go see it, it's nice. But Deadpool? Psh, bro, what are you doing? Go see Deadpool right now! I will go and watch it with you. I will rewatch Deadpool with you. I will find every single one of my friends, and I will go back to the movie 7 times to watch Deadpool in the theaters over and over and over again. Like, there's a difference. Same thing with Across the Spider-Verse. I would see that in theaters over and over and over again. It was that good. It was burned into my brain. Miles Morales is burned into my brain. What is the difference between Miles Morales' story, which is also of Hispanic origin for the character, and this guy's story, and what makes Miles Morales stand out more than this guy? Well, for one, whenever there is an emotional situation where somebody has lost somebody, in the Tobey Maguire movies and Miles Morales' case, you can feel the anguish in the actions that he takes, in the things that he says. He doesn't go about crying, and then he's like, yeah, let's crack some jokes and be all jovial and forget that we just watched someone die in our arms. Like, that's so freaking weird. Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, after he lost Uncle Ben, he was spiraling for a while. Same thing with Tom Holland's Spider-Man. There is a difference. You could see, you could feel the hurt in all their actions thereafter. The consequence of losing that person feels so real because it's still with them. Like, it doesn't just go away. Like, if I were to watch Spider-Man as somebody who's never watched the movie before and watched after he lost Uncle Ben, like right after, and Tom Holland after he lost Aunt May, I would realize, oh wow, something's wrong with this character. He's going through a lot. Like, something bad happened to him. I want to know what happened. Like, you see the character from the beginning, you see him at the end. It's completely different people based on his emotional output. But this, even though I think the main character, Jaime, does a really good job, it kind of loses its fervor after a while. Like, out of sight, out of mind kind of deal, you know? And then he, like, never brings it up again until it is necessary for some kind of flashback or purgatory scene, which I find really weird. It's very hard to emotionally connect when you tell people to be sad and then you try to make them forget that they're supposed to be sad going forward so that you can invest more into the character's emotions and their driving force. Now, we do see this later on in the end when Jaime wants to kill the villain of the story. But then again, it's like there's no real payoff to that. There's no emotional payoff to that because you made us forget it. In Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, when he wanted to kill that guy, he actually did kill that guy. We watched him go to a dark place with that.
Yeah.
Because he was hurting and he was like, yeah, fuck that guy. Same thing with Tom Holland. They did the same thing that they did in Blue Beetle, where somebody stopped him from killing that person, but you could see the anguish, and up to that point, it was still there. We got the anguish, forgot about it, and then it came back, and we're like, why is he mad? Oh yeah, that's why. Oh yeah, and the guy just tried to kill somebody else, even though he didn't see him actually die. So there was a lot of misplaced edits there with how they could have done things with the emotional side of it, and the family too. The family did make it feel bloated, like we took the focus off of Blue Beetle for a quick second, so his family could do this whole The Incredibles scene, which was really freaking weird. And then they gave like two of the people powers. They gave the granny the big Gatling gun thing, and they gave the sister her own thing so you can empower the women, and that was great and all, but I feel like it was so unnecessary and took the focus off of Blue Beetle. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's called Blue Beetle, and I get it, family and all that jazz. But they did that in Shazam. And it's cute, but it just doesn't work altogether. Like, we're not here for them. We're here for him. He's the one I want to see. So I feel like that was kind of misplaced, and that left an emotional void. It was very jarring. Not as jarring as what they do with Ant-Man, but another example of how this is done well is in the latest Guardians of the Galaxy movie with Rocket. We see how Rocket has a pivotal moment with heightened emotions and then having someone taken from him, and every action after that is him in complete anguish. Even the Rocket that we know before we knew his backstory carries some of that anguish with him, and you could tell, even especially when people are making fun of the way he looks, the hurt comes out and it makes you wonder what happened to this guy. So when we see an emotional situation like what happened in Guardians of the Galaxy 3, it stays with us. The impact stays with us, and the movie never tries to make us forget that. Hence, everybody's talking about the movie after they leave the theaters because it was so impactful, and it kept riding our emotions the entire time. So when the payoff finally did happen, we were like, yeah. Now, the other thing that I didn't particularly have a problem with, but I could understand why it would lose a lot of people, is the relatability. This is coming from the perspective of someone who is of the Latin community, and people are speaking Spanish, and I know enough Spanish, so I could understand a lot of it even without needing subtitles. So it didn't bother me. But for most people who don't understand Spanish, and most of the time you have your characters or one character in specific that's speaking a lot of Spanish, and they're making Spanish or Mexican references, you're gonna lose a lot of people. Like, unfortunately, when you're going to the movies, that's why they try to think about other people across the world and how they're going to relate to certain movies when they're releasing them, unless you're catering to a specific audience or telling a specific story about that. The culture needs to be a part of the character, and it needs to be an expression of the character. However, the movie can't be about the entire culture itself. It's Blue Beetle. Most people are gonna see it as Blue Beetle. And I think the issue is also why it might lose a lot of people is because they do this very weird thing that they do with other movies featuring minorities. And it's so annoying, and I think it's a bad representation of minorities, to be honest, because they make all the minorities good guys and all the white people bad guys. I said it, I know, but it's really freaking cringe, because you can still have a motivation for a character who is of the same community as the main character, like we did with Miles Morales. You know what I'm saying? Or like we did with Black Panther. It really shouldn't be about that, but when the whole social commentary about the movie that they try to deviously conceal in the trailers is really about how prejudiced white people are and how they don't respect them, and how all the white women and the white people in the movie, the very little that they are evil, and calling a Latino's name the wrong name, Jaime, I mean, that is Jamie in English, so she I mean, yeah, it was kind of rude because he was correcting her and saying, hey, call me this, and she was like, no, I'm just gonna ignore you because I'm white, and I have no respect for you whatsoever because you're Mexican!
Oh, my freaking ears!
It's so annoying when movies do that, and I just kept rolling my eyes like, really? And they didn't just do it once, they did it several times in the movie. And then there's some cringe-ass moments at the end where the guy that I like from What We Do in the Shadows, Guillermo, I love him, oh my god, I love him so much. But the Susan Sarandon woman, the white woman who's evil, keeps calling him Sanchez. And he's like, that's not my name, you know? And it's like, dude, come on, stop. What are you doing? And then he decides to betray her, even though let's not forget that this guy took this job with this woman and has done many heinous things, Mexican or not. He has done many heinous things, but at the last minute, because she has captured yet another Latino guy, he's like, you know what, you're killing him. You call me Sanchez for the last time. My name is not Sanchez. Me llamo blah blah blah. And it's like, what? Where did that even come from? And you know the only reason he's doing it is because you're a member of my community, so I must help you, even though I've done so much to other people in my community to kill them. It's just so weird, but it's just the main character, so now we're like, oh, we're supposed to feel bad for this person who was essentially a villain that helped this bigger villain prey on so many other people of your community, and we're just supposed to be like, oh, he's redeemed now because he's Latino too. And then the main villain, or the one who's being used, the one who's done a lot of heinous things too, who was the super soldier puppeteer of the white woman, he gets a redeeming thing because we see a flashback when the alien tells him that, oh, by the way, if you look into his memories, he was taken from a child, and the white woman is actually the reason why he became the way he is. So we just take away all accountability from this dude who has killed many people and who has done many things under this white woman. And he got to a certain age where he would have known better, and he chose to stay with her. So, I mean, you could have offed yourself back then too. So when are we taking accountability? It's almost like the movie's trying to tell us because he's Latino, he's automatically good. That's the way they're shaping it, because no white person in the movie is good. We don't really see a lot of them. And I think I was really confused because the girl that he likes, of course, she's Latino as well. And she has a father, but the father is related to Susan Sarandon. So I'm like, okay, well, that's Caucasian. So it must mean that he married a Latino woman. That's the only thing I can think of, which would make sense. And he's not in the movie. He's not in the movie, and he's not evil, though. He's not evil, and there is an end credit where he's alive, I guess. I guess it's him. I wasn't really paying attention at the time. I didn't even realize the end credit was coming on. I was like, oh, crap. But apparently, he was influenced in a positive light by his Hispanic wife, so he's only good. They're implying that he's only good because of her or his family. Look, I don't know, like they do the same thing with the Jordan Peele movies, and after a while, even members of the community are starting to get really, like it's annoying. It's annoying, and it makes people of the community look bad. Nobody wants that. So that part was annoying. Is it enough to break the entire movie? For me personally, no, because I still like the I still like the Blue Beetle character. However, it was annoying to the fact where it bothered me enough to remember that it bothered me, which is a problem. Like, when it becomes repetitious and they tell the same joke over and over again, but you know it's not really a joke, you know it's a jab at 70% of your audience that you want to pay for this movie, it kind of gets old, and you can kind of understand why it would turn off a lot of people. The relatability isn't there. Not only is it not relatable because the culture is like it feels like you're catering specifically to people of that culture. People outside can watch it and like what they're seeing and be introduced to the culture, but if the majority of the culture that you're representing is malicious towards another specific group, how can you intend to have people relate to that? You know what I'm saying? It's like, for example, if I'm Indian and I'm like, I want a movie about my culture, but the only thing that you see about my culture is freaking white men. Nobody's gonna want it. No, nobody's gonna want that. We're aware the history thing happened. That's great, but you want these people's money. Majority of the people who buy the tickets are white people. Why are they gonna spend money so you can just shit on them and let them know that the majority of what our culture is about that we're representing in this movie is the fact that you're evil. And yeah, we can't do anything because it's your fault. That's really stupid. That's a really weird kind of commentary to have in the movie, and that was very annoying, and I didn't think they would go that route. Even if they did it, I didn't expect it to be as heavy-handed as it was in this movie. Regardless, I am happy that at least at the end they had Blue Beetle have his moments. It wasn't taken away from him by the freaking female characters, even though they did have a little bit of that in there, and it was sweet in the end, but then the villain just... the payoff wasn't that good. You know what it was? It was a one-dimensional villain, but there's nothing really inherently wrong with one-dimensional villains. It's the way they're presented. And Susan Sarandon's villain was just villainy for the sake of being villainy, which is so cartoonish. There was nothing there. Now, the guy in Guardians of the Galaxy, he was kind of one-dimensional too. However, they did give us a little bit of motivation for him when he went to Earth and how he saw how humans were, and he was disgusted. He was like, look at what they do to their planet. This is a blight on the freaking universe. And he didn't really go too much into it, but just that little tidbit that he gave us was enough for us to understand, okay, there's a reason why he's doing this. We don't have to go completely into it, but you can understand where he's coming from. Maybe he's a bit warped and he went too far, but you can understand the starting point enough for it to be believable and enough for us to believe him as a villain. It felt like Susan Sarandon was cosplaying as a villain, and her villain was just evil white lady trying to oppress the Mexicans. That's what it felt like. That's just what it felt like to me. I don't know. It was just bizarre. I still enjoyed the movie. The action made up for it. The character made up for it. My Final Fantasy sword, that part was amazing. That was my favorite part of the entire movie. That's the only part I remember. The way you did that was so freaking good. That anime move. Ooh.
Whatever you can imagine, I can create.
That was good. And if you ask me, maybe 5 years from now, what do you remember about the Blue Beetle movie? That's the only thing I can remember. I know that's the only thing that's gonna be burned into my mind. If you ask me about the Deadpool movie, I can give you a lot more, and I'm mostly gonna be talking about Deadpool and the things he said and how funny he is, like what in the ass, and just how hilarious he is, just watching the movie for the sake of watching him. I can't honestly say that I would go back and watch this movie for the sake of watching Blue Beetle. He didn't make that much of an impact on me to want to go back and watch it over. I'm just being completely honest. That being said, to conclude this, I enjoyed the movie. I'm not sorry that I saw it, and I think it's one of the better DC movies out there. Sorry if you hate me for being bloodthirstily honest in my review. I don't mean any malice towards anyone. I'm just coming at it. People need to say these things because I don't know why people are pussyfooting around saying certain things that are true. But people want their movies to do well, they have to understand what they're doing. And it's not just me. Go ask a lot of members of the Latin community. They're saying the same thing. They're like, bro, what in the world? When you make a movie, it shouldn't just be about, hey, are the Latin Americans gonna love this? No, you want to reach everyone. You want everyone to like the movie and for it to be a good representation of the community that you're representing in the character's community. And Miles Morales Across the Spider-Verse did that perfectly. I didn't walk away thinking, man, I don't know if that guy's Latino or Hispanic or not. No, I understand, like, they were able to show his culture so beautifully, but it was about him. It wasn't about just this community and this whole PSA about how evil white people were. It wasn't about that. It was literally about him. So I walk away remembering Miles Morales and remembering his story and how badass he was. And he just happened to be Afro-Hispanic or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the point I'm trying to make. Sorry, this isn't scripted, so it came out all weird and I'm not feeling well. But would you spend money on this? Should you spend money on this? I mean, I wouldn't. That's up to you, but Across the Spider-Verse, hell yeah. Go as many times as you can, pay for that, as many times as you can in the movie theaters. help this movie. This movie is freaking badass. If it ever comes into theaters again, Into the Spider-Verse, Across the Spider-Verse, shell out money. Definitely. Deadpool, yes. Shell out money. Definitely. This movie, no, not really. No, wait for it to come streaming. This is a nice streaming movie. That's about it. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. This has been Ultiori. You ask, we answer.